You are now listening to the Unscripted Ohio podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Grove. For all the latest Buckeyes news, analysis, reaction, and the best Ohio State community on the entire internet, head over to BuckeyeGrove.com or follow us on Twitter at Ohio State Rivals. Without any further delay, it's time to get unscripted, broadcasting from Podcast Central, a place that is not his mother's basement.
Hey, Mom! We get some meatloaf!
We promise. Here's your host, Kyle Lamb.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
And good Monday to you. Welcome back to the Unscripted Ohio podcast. I am your host, Kyle Lamb, by name and by reputation. Very much looking forward to a full week of the Unscripted Ohio podcast as we are launching our Friday edition on top of the usual Monday edition that we've had since we launched a couple of months ago. Very, very excited about this week. We're going to be going in forward and in reverse. We look ahead this week as Friday, we're going to have a lot of football to talk about. Big Ten Media Day is getting cranked up today in Chicago. Our very own publisher extraordinaire, Kevin Noon, and Mark Gibler will be in Chicago, bringing you all the best Buckeye coverage and the Big Ten coverage from Chicago. Stay tuned to BuckeyeGrove.com because they have a lot of stuff to come at you this week. We've got some very special interviews. I'm very excited as the show is going to benefit from this huge week. Going to have Joel Klatt on, probably on the Friday show. Joel Klatt, of course, in my opinion, the best football analyst there is in the business today. Did a great job with Fox Sports last year. We're going to have him on Friday's edition, talking to him about the Big Ten and kind of previewing where it stands. We've got some preseason news and notes as far as the preseason writers poll is out. I'll tell you where Ohio State is predicted to finish in this year's Big Ten. And, of course, we'll get into all the preview, like I said, on the Friday show. Joel Klatt coming at you. We've got a scheduled interview with Dr. Robert Smith, also a Fox analyst, will be coming up probably next Monday. Also this Friday, of course, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of Media Days with Kevin Noon and probably some recruiting stuff to get into with Mark Gibler as well. So a full week looking ahead to the podcast. Again, we will be launching the first Friday edition of Unscripted Ohio coming at you this week. And stay tuned because once we hit that Friday edition, there's no turning back. We will be ramping up to 2 days a week going forward. So throughout the month of August, heading right into Ohio State football, count on Unscripted Ohio being available to you on BuckeyeGrove.com on Monday and Friday, as well as on the archives, Google Play, iTunes, SoundCloud, and also Stitcher. So very much looking forward to an exciting couple weeks of football coverage. Pay attention for that. But I mentioned we're not just going in forward, we're also going in reverse because I have a lot of basketball stuff to talk about on this show. We're going to look back on what I think was just an exciting, unbelievable weekend for Ohio State basketball. Of course, the basketball tournament going on Friday through Sunday this past weekend at Capital University. And I've got a lot coming at you here in the show. I've got interviews with Aaron Kraft, with Andrew Dockage, and David Lakey. So stay tuned here for later in the show. You're going to enjoy those interviews. They're not real long, but all three of them very good interviews. Of course, you're familiar with all their careers at Ohio State. Of course, David Lakey playing 4 years, Aaron Kraft playing 4 years. Andrew Dockage we just got 1 year out of, but he was a treat to watch for that 1 year. He played basketball at Ohio State. Will now be moving on as a graduate assistant coming up this season for the Buckeyes. But I've got interviews with all three of them from Capital. I mentioned the basketball tournament, of course. This is in its 5th year in existence, and people are beginning to know this as a tournament for alumni teams, and that really isn't why it was created. It was just a tournament that people could get together and form teams and enter, and now a chance to win a $2 million prize for the winning team. But it has kind of morphed into a situation where a bunch of these major programs are getting alumni teams together and competing. And the byproduct of this, in addition to great basketball, and it really is sensational basketball, and it's been great for ESPN because it's great summer programming. you could put live content on in the summer, and it's getting very good ratings, but it's also generating a buzz among fan bases, basketball fan bases, and that has been great. Just seeing what it is doing for programs like Ohio State, it's allowed people to really get excited about seeing former players that they enjoyed seeing a 4-year career. Several years later, they're coming back, and now all these guys getting back together and putting on the Scarlet and Gray. Of course, that being the team name, not being able to use the actual Ohio State name for licensing and trademark purposes, obviously. But just being able to don the colors again and seeing them all in one place at Capitol this weekend, it was sensational. Several players talked about getting goosebumps. David Lighty, you'll hear later in his interview, saying he got chills from the standing ovation that Ohio State fans gave the team, as well as Thad Matta. And we'll get into that later because that was a big story, I thought, for the weekend. Great to see Thad Matta getting a standing ovation from the sold-out crowd of 2,500 plus at Capital University Capitol Center this weekend. Well-deserved, and for a guy who didn't really get closure and had to go out in a way that, of course, he would have liked to go out on his own terms, and he was kind of nudged out. And it's unfortunate it came down to that. But it is great to see the recognition, well-deserved, and you'll hear this from the players. Of course, they all have nothing but great things to say about Thad Matta. And anybody that's been around Thad Matta has nothing but great things to say about him. So it was an exciting weekend. I am going to talk more about the tournament and what it meant for Ohio State basketball, because it really felt like a celebration of Ohio State basketball this weekend, past, present, and future. And I'm going to get into why it felt that way here in a few moments. But we're kind of at an interesting week because as we get into football, this is an interesting cross-section here because it is on the verge of football season, and traditionally, the month of July is not basketball season. So it's kind of funny that it's interesting that we have so much basketball to talk about. And I want to get people's opinions on this because this kind of came up on Twitter, and it's something, it's a pet peeve of mine, and that's why I want to get into it. So as we near, football season, Big Ten football media days coming up here starting today, it's interesting from the standpoint, I was on Twitter basically talking about, and you can tweet at me at KYLAM, the number 8, of course. Hit me up with your feedback about this, about football, Big Ten media days, anything really, but I am curious what you think about this topic, because when I pointed out that I thought this weekend at Capital University was a tremendous representation of the passion that Ohio State fans have for basketball, because let's face it, there is the perception out there that Ohio State is a football school, and make no mistake about it, nobody is going to argue that Ohio State fans are not passionate about football. It is probably the best football first school in the country, and if it's not number one, it's certainly right there with anybody else you want to argue. It's right there. If not number one, it's right there with Alabama. I think it's ahead of Penn State, but you could make an argument for Penn State. But there really are only a few programs that you could lump in with Ohio State when it comes to traditional, consistent support of the football program. Nebraska is definitely up there, despite the fact that they've been down for a number of years relative to the success they had in recent memory, especially under Tom Osborne. They were a juggernaut back in the 90s. But Ohio State, let's make no bones about it, it is a top 5 program in every possible measure. Fan support, wins, tradition, branding, finances, academics is certainly getting up there as well. But no matter how you look at Ohio State, it is a top 5 football program. But now, sometimes it is unfair to, I think, the basketball program, because it's, instead of judging Ohio State fans and Ohio State basketball based on what it does relative to other basketball programs around the country, people pigeonhole it and compare it to what is going on with the football program and the football support. And think about this. If you go on Twitter, you'll see this from Michigan fans, from Michigan State fans, Penn State fans, but especially you'll see it from basketball fans of traditional powers like Indiana and Kansas and Kentucky and North Carolina and Duke, and that's really silly that Duke fans would talk about that because Duke is the epitome of bandwagon fans in most cases. And I don't want to insult anybody that's a fan of Duke basketball because not everybody is a bandwagon. There are some cases where parents went to Duke or you grew up because you have family ties or maybe you're from North Carolina. There are other reasons that people grow up and wind up supporting Duke as a basketball fan. But it is kind of funny when Duke fans, of all people, are talking about Ohio State basketball fans, discrediting Ohio State basketball fandom because of the success of the football program. But I really hate this because the number one response you get about Ohio State when it comes to fan support and talking basketball, and you guys hear this all the time, so you know I'm right. The number one thing is, well, okay, yeah, they had 15,000 for that basketball game, but they would have drawn 85,000 for the spring football game. So it tells you how much they care about basketball in Ohio. And I hate that because it's ridiculous. Think about the logic you're talking about here. You're penalizing Ohio State fans because Ohio State loves football. Well, guess what? Football is the most popular sport in America. Do you think the Indiana program outdraws their football program? Go look at the attendance. Last year, in 6 home dates for their football program, they still had a total attendance that was greater than the basketball program, who had 18 home dates. And that's the same way with places like Kansas and North Carolina and Kentucky. Okay? Because football is a more popular sport, even these traditional basketball schools, as people call them, they're still being outdrawn by their subpar, mediocre football programs because there are more football fans in America than there are basketball fans. So I hate when people say, well, Ohio State is a football school. They don't care about basketball. I don't care how many people Ohio State draws to the shoe for a Saturday afternoon for a football game or a Saturday afternoon for spring football. That is not relevant. It's not a point that needs to be argued. What we need to be talking about with Ohio State is, can it draw for basketball? And the answer we have been given time and again is yes. Is it consistent enough? No. Am I crazy about the atmosphere down at Value City Arena at the Schottenstein Center for a game against Northwestern on a Monday evening? No. Sometimes it is very quiet and the atmosphere needs to improve. And we can pass that off to some degree because of acoustics, and some of it is fan support, some of it is seating arrangement. There are a lot of various reasons to blame the atmosphere at the Schottenstein Center for Ohio State basketball. But one of them is not completely a lack of emotion or a lack of support or a lack of interest in the Ohio State basketball program. And anybody that doubts that, go back and pull up ESPN and stream a replay of the 2 games played at Capitol by the Scarlet and Gray team this past weekend, because I guarantee you will find out if you listen closely. You're going to hear a fan base that was loud, that was pumped up, that was genuinely excited for not only the basketball program of the present, but excited to honor a lot of great basketball players and great people that this basketball program has put through under Thad Matta in the last 10 to 15 years. And I have no doubt that this is proof positive. There are not a lot of programs. I'm going to say maybe 10 programs out there in the country that would have had the kind of fan support and atmosphere at Capital University that we saw this past weekend. And sure, 2,500 relative to Ohio State football, yeah, there's no question 80,000 would have come into the shoe for an Ohio State spring game. But that's not the comparison. We should be looking at what Ohio State has done relative to other basketball programs, and there is not a lot of teams out there. Indiana, sure. Kansas, sure. Kentucky, North Carolina. There are some teams, Syracuse, Michigan State. It's not that there aren't other programs that would have done that, but there aren't a lot of them, and it really was a great weekend for Ohio State basketball. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here coming up later in the show. Like I said, got David Lighty coming your way, got Aaron Kraft coming your way, and Andrew Dockage coming your way. I want to get into this more, but Ohio State basketball, great showing for the program, not only for these former players who are now going to the regionals this weekend in Atlanta. the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, for lack of better terminology. It's actually, the quarterfinals, the third round and quarterfinals. But we'll get into that later. But as they go for the $2 million team prize to the winning team, they're down to the final 16. It was just a great weekend for not only the team, but for Ohio State basketball at large. So before I get back into the actual weekend, the basketball tournament and what I saw there, how the team performed, what some of the former players had to say about the atmosphere, it's really interesting real quick because I want to talk about football media days as, again, Kevin and Mark will be in Chicago starting today. They'll be in there the next 2 days. Stay tuned for Buckeye Grove. We'll have all the coverage coming up for media days as we work through all the interviews on Monday. The Ohio State interviews, Urban Meyer, and some of the players will come on Tuesday. But we'll certainly get the gist of what is being talked about around the Big Ten. The initial media polls came out, and as you would expect, Wisconsin picked to win the Big Ten West. Ohio State picked to win the Big Ten East, and more or less, most people picked Ohio State to win the Big Ten over Wisconsin in the championship game. Now, I had an observation about this because, look, when you look at this from just a probability standpoint, if you calculate the odds, and I know this is real geeky, nerdy stuff here, but I want to get into the nuts and bolts because I thought this was interesting. If you think about this from a standpoint of probability, who's likely to win the Big Ten championship, I actually think it's fair to say the Wisconsin Badgers might be the favorite. And the only reason I say that is not that Wisconsin should be favored to beat Ohio State, not that they're the best team in the Big Ten, but what it comes down to is the Big Ten East is a lot more wide open. When you rank on paper the top 5 teams in the Big Ten this year, I think it's pretty obvious that you come up with 4 of the top 5 are from the Big Ten East. You've got Ohio State, you've got Penn State, who was a top 10 preseason team. You've got Michigan, who is pretty much a top 10 preseason team, I think, by most publications. Michigan is going to have a gauntlet of a schedule, and I think that could prohibit them from winning the title just because of their schedule. But then, of course, you've got Michigan State, also a fringe top 10 team. I think most publications are going to have them in the 8 to 15 range, somewhere in that neighborhood. You might see them a little higher, a few spots higher by some, and you might see them a few spots lower by others. But when it comes down to it, because of the strength of that top 4 in the Big Ten East, I think it's fair to say Wisconsin has a much better probability of winning the Big Ten title this year, just because Ohio State is going to have to face Penn State and Michigan State. So it's not going to be an easy schedule for Ohio State. It's not going to be easy going. And because of all of those top 10 teams, potentially, that the Buckeyes may have to face, I would say it's probably prudent to call Wisconsin the Big Ten favorite, just in terms of probability. So that part of it I have no problem with, and I see some people calling Wisconsin the projected winner of the Big Ten. But here is where I differ with some of these projections, and it's kind of just an annoyance on my part. I see some people, though, projecting the championship game as Ohio State and Wisconsin, and I see some people picking Wisconsin. Now, I don't think that's outlandish. Look, in my mind, Wisconsin is also a top 10 caliber team on paper. They're going to have another very good defense. They've got an offense that, I think they're going to build off of last year. Danny Davis, I think, is going to be one of the better receivers in the country this year. Had an outstanding sophomore season. Alex Hornibrook was inconsistent last year for the most part. He, despite the lack of a really strong arm, I thought he was a good quarterback last year. But that arm really came and kind of reared its ugly head in a game against Ohio State, where Ohio State's defense really made it hard for him. He had very small, tight windows to throw the ball, and he just was not successful getting it done. Now, he had a good game against Miami Hurricanes. He had some other good games throughout the season. I think he is a good quarterback. I think that Wisconsin team is going to be strong this year. But here's the problem I had, and we saw this. It's what it boiled down to in the Big Ten championship game. when the Buckeyes, granted it was a tight game, it was probably tighter than it should have been. There were times in the second half, especially the third quarter, where Ohio State looked like it had a chance to pull away and put that game on ice early on, and it just didn't get it done. But what I'm looking at here is, for me, I think Wisconsin is a legitimate team, and I have so much respect for that program because for so long, they just get it done. They just win games. They're not flashy. They're not a team that's good enough to get over the hump and win the national title for the most part, but they are right there every year, and I respect that, and I appreciate that. And they're good enough to beat Ohio State this year in Indianapolis. But I feel like there are writers out there that are trying too hard to make the Badgers a favorite. If you want to say that Wisconsin is your favorite to win because of the statistical probability that I mentioned, I'm all on board with that. But I think if you're already projecting Ohio State to win the Big Ten, I feel like picking Wisconsin right now, to some degree, there is a little bit of people, some of this is going on where people are trying too hard to be trendy. They're trying to think outside the box. Sometimes I think people overcomplicate things. When push comes to shove, it comes down to who has the dogs, who has the hosses. And for me, on paper, this Ohio State team, and there are question marks. We don't know what Dwayne Haskins is going to be. He's not a finished product. The secondary is still a little bit of a question mark. I mean, the talent is there, but we don't know how they're going to respond. There are positions on this Ohio State roster that are not finalized, but when push comes to shove, the Buckeyes have the hosses. If I am going to make predictions, prognostications, projections, I'm going with the team that has the dogs, the team that I know is going to line up with the horses, not just on the first string, but on the second string and third string of the depth chart. And that's Ohio State. It's loaded with talent from top to bottom. I'm not saying Wisconsin can't win the Big Ten. I'm not saying Wisconsin won't win the Big Ten. But I think all the Wisconsin projections I've seen over Ohio State right now, just people trying to be a little too cute, trying to overthink this. Don't overthink this, folks. Don't make this overly complicated. Ohio State, on paper, has a chance to be a really good team. I don't know that it'll manifest itself that way. There are 3 legitimate challengers for the Big Ten East crown, and Wisconsin is a legitimate title contender from the West. But all I'm trying to say as we head into Big Ten Media Days, I think that there is just a little bit of overthinking this. I think Ohio State is and should be the favorite. And I don't want to sound like a jilted Ohio State fan that's coming at this. How dare you not pick Ohio State? I'm just looking at this from an analytical standpoint. Don't overcomplicate this or overthink it. I mean, look at this Ohio State roster. If you have to put money down on this, and this is an apt way to look at it, since sports gambling is coming to Ohio in the near future, it looks like. And there's been a bill in the House that they're discussing. It's certainly coming to the United States, and in some states, Delaware already has it. New Jersey is getting ready to pass it. Las Vegas, or Nevada specifically, getting ready to institute it. So it is coming to the United States. But if you're going to put money down on this, who would you put your money down? Put your money where your mouth is. And in that case, people aren't picking Wisconsin. If you put money on this, they're going to pick Ohio State. That's my common sense moment of the day. Sponsored, well, it's not really sponsored by anybody, but it's coming from me, so I'm endorsing my own opinion there. I say if you're going to pick somebody, don't be trendy. Go with Ohio State until you are proven different. So that's just my little pet peeve for the day. It'll be interesting. We'll get into some more projections, some more 2018 football talk with Kevin and Mark later in the week from Chicago, and we'll see what the media has to say and some of the other coaches around the league have to say. Very excited. Football season is almost around the corner, but we have a little bit of basketball to talk from the weekend. So let's reflect for a moment here on the basketball we saw this weekend at Capital University. The basketball tournament, they are now down to the final 16 teams. They started with 72. The regional format, basically they have seeded formats, and I can't explain the seeding to you. Actually, I won't even try to explain the seeding to you because, to be honest, I'm not sure exactly how they seed the teams. I know it has some to do with reputation, and fans can vote on teams. So I know that's a part of the equation, but I don't know if that's the whole part. But the bottom line, Ohio State the Scarlet and Gray was the number 1 seed in the Midwest region, and they will now be advancing. They will play Friday night at 9 p.m. against a team in Atlanta. And that'll be the quarterfinal. And that team, by the way, basically, if you're wondering, it's the primetime players. They're basically a collection of smaller schools, Division 2 and 3 schools, mostly scattered throughout the Southeast. There are a few guys, Jeff McInnes, former North Carolina player. There's a guy that played for Hampton. So there's some kids from Division 1 HBCU schools, and then some other Division 2 and Division 3 schools. So it's kind of a smorgasbord, hodgepodge of players. Ohio State definitely will be favored in this one. Not that there's any betting lines on this type of game, but Ohio State would be the favorite. They're the number 1 seed. This team, primetime players, the number 12 seed in the Midwest. There's a little bit of conflicting info out there. I know on the broadcast, Paul Keels and Dan Dockage were saying Jared Sullinger will not be available this week and throughout the rest of the tournament. I don't know what the story is on this, but all I can tell you is Jared Sullinger and Scooney Penn were saying this weekend that he was going to be available, so I don't know where the disconnect is. I can't promise Jared Sullinger will be out there Friday night come 6 p.m. 9 p.m. My hunch is that Sullinger will be out there. If it's true he's getting married on Saturday, my thinking here is you could play basketball on Friday, go fly out, have your wedding ceremony on Saturday, come back and play again on Sunday for the Elite Eight, if you will. I don't know if that's the case. I do know Ohio State, the alumni are expecting to have Greg Oden come up this weekend. So they will get strength and numbers and have more depth. If Byron Mullins, who did not play on Saturday or on Sunday, he was around, had a terrific game on Saturday. I don't know his situation. I know they said after the game, after Sunday, he was not around. He had some personal issues to attend. I don't know his availability, but let's say they have Sullinger and Mullins and Oden. That is a tremendous front court. I think this team has a chance to win the whole shebang, the $2 million prize. It was great to see these guys play again. Jared Sullinger especially ripping up 28 points and 20 rebounds against the Matadors, the Texas Tech alumni. They had no answer for him inside. He was just a beast. Seeing Aaron Kraft dive for loose balls and the place go nuts in appreciation of his effort. It was all great. It was great to see these guys. Of course, there's the Elam Ending at the basketball tournament, which you may have been confused. The winning score, the score to win, to win the game, you may have seen flash up on the screen at times in the last 4 minutes. And basically, the way this works is, if you're just watching this weekend for the first time, you'll notice this. So starting the basketball tournament is using a system called the Elam Ending, and so the first dead ball that comes after the 4-minute mark of the fourth quarter, they stop the game after that dead ball, and then whatever the leading score is, they add 7 points and to that score, and that is the number that you have to get to win the game. So for the Scarlet and Gray on Sunday, they led 75-70. They took a timeout at the under 4, and so then the score, they add 7 points to the 75, and it becomes 82 as the score to win the game. So the first one to 82 from that point wins, and it wound up being a Scarlet and Gray 82-73 win. They had a walk-off dunk by David Lakey. You'll hear in a few minutes. I asked him about that. He had a walk-off dunk, alley-oop to be precise, and of course that won the game. That got them from 80-82, and the game ended on that alley-oop. I personally love this ending. I think the Elam Ending is great because what it does, it eliminates overtime. It eliminates fouling on purpose and the parade of free throws. It eliminates the 15 to 20 minute finishes for the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game, or in some cases the last 1 to 2 minutes of the game. I wish this would take off and we would see this adopted by college basketball. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I tell you what, it's been a lot of fun. I was skeptical about it at first. I am no longer skeptical. I really love this. Overall, it was a great weekend. The format aside, the Elam Ending it just was great basketball to see. It was great for Ohio State basketball. This felt like a celebration of the present, of the past, and also the future. The buzz there at Capitol Center on the Capitol University grounds, it was palpable. It really felt like Ohio State fans were excited about the program, and that came through with the way not only just applauding Aaron Kraft or making a standing ovation for a great play or a great block by Dallas Lauderdale or a 3-ball by John Diebler. There's some nostalgia there, and there's some excitement for just getting to see these players again because they were fan favorites. And that's one thing Thad Matta does not get enough credit for nationally, and that he didn't just recruit great players. These guys are talented for sure, but they are great players. They are great guys. Getting to talk to them was just a thrill. It was great for me because I covered a lot of these guys back when they were in high school and AAU and going to Ohio State. I got to know a lot of them and a lot of their families. So being backstage after the event on Saturday and Sunday and getting to kind of touch base with some of them, it was great to see. It was great to hear. It really is exciting, and that buzz you could feel in the gymnasium this weekend. I think it also was not just for the excitement of them being back around Columbus together, but it was also because people see and recognize what is going on with the basketball program under Chris Holtmann. And so I think there was some genuine excitement there, and it definitely came through in the atmosphere. It came through in their appreciation for Thad Matta. Great weekend for basketball. You can bet that the basketball tournament will come back to Columbus in the near future. Hopefully, they can go a little bit further with it and maybe take a chance. Put it at St. John Arena, or maybe when the Covelli Center opens, the volleyball arena on campus, maybe put it in there, have an attendance capacity of like closer to 4,000. Whatever the number is, I can guarantee you based on this weekend, there are more than 2,500 people that would love to come out and fill that arena and make some noise for the Ohio State basketball players of old. And it was great to see. It was a great showcase for OSU basketball. So now I've got, speaking of a showcase, 3 guys that I spoke to on Sunday for the podcast that graciously volunteered their time to share some thoughts about the basketball program and the weekend and reminisce a little bit about Ohio State. Andrew Dockage, Aaron Kraft, and David Lakey. I hope you enjoyed these interviews. Let's start with Aaron Kraft.
Stretch runtime here at Unscripted Ohio. Kick up your feet as we cross the finish line with the Buckeye Beat, the latest in Ohio State news and notes.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
There we go. Okay. All right, Aaron. First, talk about the atmosphere this weekend. It seems like this went above and beyond even what I think people imagined what would it be.
Yeah, I was saying earlier that I think we all expected it to be full. We weren't expecting, I don't think, the energy. Buckeye Nation's the best fans in the land, and I'm just glad we were able to play hard and get them 2 wins this week.
Probably the highlight of the moment, I think, for a lot of the former players was seeing the ovation that Thad got on Saturday.
Yeah, I love Coach, and it was great. I think that was great for him. He deserved it 100%, especially with the way that things kind of ended with him on a sour note. He never really got that curtain call, and I'm really glad that Buckeye Nation responded that way.
How long do you suppose till Ohio State gets around to honoring him officially?
Yeah, it might take some time. Hats off to Coach Holtmann for doing what he's doing, but Coach turned this program around. He's a massive part of that, and eventually, people will see that and they will come out.
What would you think of a lot of the media members and some of the fans were talking about the idea of how cool it would be to get this kind of tournament over at St. John Arena or something like that? What would you think about something like that?
If there was air conditioning over there, I think we'd be there for sure.
Yeah.
We don't need anybody passing out, but if this continues, I think we could definitely get it to a bigger venue. I heard they were turning people away yesterday.
Yeah.
You never want to do that. So it's if it works out, we would love to.
I think it's safe to say the tournament officials had to be impressed with what happened this week.
I think they did a great job of putting it here, and even I think if they continue to pursue this, they could put this later round, the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, even the championship. That would be probably unfair if we made it, but I think Columbus is a great basketball town. It's a great city. It has everything you need for that, and hopefully they consider that.
So let me ask you about your personal career. You've got a new challenge here coming up this year. I believe Montenegro is where you're going.
It's just a great opportunity to actually play EuroLeague over there, which is the top league. So it was a door that my wife and I thought we should run through and get out of our comfort zone continually. And it's going to be different, but we're excited.
How much do you know about the competition over there?
In Montenegro, per se, I don't know a ton. I know that obviously the EuroLeague, those teams are great. Those are guys you watch on TV, like the NBA over there. So I know of them. I know the Adriatic League that we'll play in is really highly competitive as well. So it's going to be a good time. I think I'm going to fit in with the way the team plays, aggressive and getting after it. I think we have a good squad.
So I want to ask you about, you mentioned Coach Holtman getting everything integrated, as kind of making the transition with the former players. And what's that been like with him reaching out to everybody and making them feel comfortable part of the program?
No, I think it's huge, especially here at Ohio State. We always wanted to come back. We always want to come back because we missed our time at Ohio State and being in Columbus, being around the guys. And what helped us when we were going through school was older guys coming back and teaching us, what they've learned and asking them questions. So we want to make sure we keep that bond going and open that channel for them.
What did you think of his first year when the chances you had to watch the team? What did you think of the not only the team but the direction of the program?
Obviously it's going in the right direction. They had great players. Kata staying healthy all year was huge, and that's obviously a big thing. But they played hard. That's what you need to do at Ohio State. You need to play physical and play hard, and I think he's going to continue to do that.
Weekend like this, on top of the season they had and the success they're having in recruiting, it feels like the excitement and the electricity around the program is already back, and I think that kind of seemed to come out this weekend.
Yeah, I think we actually talked to some of the guys the other day in the program now and said, hey, last year was kind of the easy part. No one expected anything, but Ohio State, we have high expectations for the basketball program, and the fans do, and it's easy to see, from this weekend. So their work has just begun. We expect them to continue to hold the high standard, and we want them to do that.
Well, Aaron, best of luck in your chase for $2 million this weekend.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was former Buckeye point guard Aaron Kraft. My next guest that I got to speak with this weekend is current graduate assistant Andrew Dockage, who unfortunately his team, Big X, was originally a culmination of some Ohio State and Michigan players. It wound up really just being him and one or two other Michigan guys, as Cam Williams and Jayshawn Tate and Duncan Robinson, all wound up not playing with Big X this weekend. Unfortunately, they went down and lost by 3 points on Sunday, so they've been eliminated from the basketball tournament. But here is Andrew Dockage talking about his time at Ohio State and what his role will be going forward with the Buckeyes as a graduate assistant. And I will also warn in advance, there's a little assist with Jared Sullinger clowning around in the background, coming up trying to disrupt Andrew from his interview, so you'll have to pay no mind to Jared in the background trying to get him off his game a little bit. All right, I'm here with Andrew Dockage here at the basketball tournament. Andrew, first tell me about the experience. What do you think of the tournament so far and being able to participate this year?
Yeah, well, we almost went out early yesterday. It was just really nerve-wracking. The Elam Ending changes things up a little bit. They had 2 chances to close us out, but we were fortunate enough to come away with it. It's really cool, get a group of guys playing, obviously. It's been a great atmosphere, of course, because Scarlett and Grace here and whatnot, so it's been a really fun, enjoyable time.
So I've been asking a lot of people this. What do you think of the Elam Ending? Do you like it, not like it?
I liked it yesterday, that's for sure. Yeah. That was my first time experiencing it, and it makes you score. You don't have to play the clock. You don't have to play fouling at the end, making pressure free throws. You got to go get a bucket. So it makes it more difficult. And I think it's been working out well so far.
It seemed interesting because I noticed yesterday with a couple of the games that were not really in doubt at the end, it still made it interesting from the standpoint it was no longer about killing clock because you still had to go score and end the game.
Yeah, and that's what it was exactly. You can't hold the ball. You can't wait 10 seconds on the shot clock and go get a bucket. Like, you got to run some offense to go score, and obviously play defense. And threes kill you, obviously, but like I said, we were fortunate enough to win, and I saw the team we played yesterday, the team we played today was down 9 when the Elam Ending started. So you just never know.
So you guys have had a lot of turnover from where you thought you were going to be when you signed up for the tournament.
Yeah.
Jay Sean being out, Cam not being around.
Yeah.
But you still managed to get a win under your belt, and you're still alive.
Still alive, yeah, we're breathing. And obviously Duncan Robinson signed an NBA contract, so, it was tough, obviously, but I really like our team. I think, we struggled yesterday, but I'm just happy as hell that we get to play here on Sunday.
So how's Jay Sean doing with his finger and trying to get back? That was a big blow
he'll be
for
back.
him.
Yeah, I know he had to have surgery. He'll be back mid-August, I believe, and I think it'll really work out for him. He's been playing really well this summer. It's an unfortunate situation, but I think he'll get picked up just by how he plays.
Chris Holtman said that the Bucks really liked him. What had they said to him as far as his rehab and maybe getting a chance to try to go back and make the roster?
I'm not really sure about that.
Okay.
I don't know about that one.
So let's talk about you now. First, talk about looking back on your season at Ohio State. Now you're a graduate assistant. We'll get into that in a second. But what did you think? Compared to coming in as a graduate transfer. What was the season like compared to what maybe you expected going in?
Honestly, it was everything I could ask for and more. I got a chance to play on a winning team, compete for a Big Ten championship, and play for the play in the NCAA tournament. That was my vision. That was my goal. I didn't have to score points. That's not what it was about. It was about winning and affecting the game as best as I could. I was really fortunate enough to have Kata Bates-Diop and Jay Sean Tate, Cam Williams kind of take me in. And obviously, C.J. Jackson had a great year. It was just a really fun time. I wish I had another year, honestly, now thinking back about it. So really
now,
good.
As a graduate assistant, what kind of describe some of your duties and your role this year within the program?
Yeah, I think it's just coming down to recruiting, helping the kids out, figure out, trying to sell Ohio State with them. And so, it really hasn't started yet. It'll start up in August. But I'm just looking forward to just having conversations with Coach Holman and the staff and kind of seeing behind the scenes if I really want to get into it.
You decided yet? That was going to be my next question. You decided, do you want to go down the coaching road?
I'm 98% sure. I think that the 2% will be figured out in the first few months.
Yeah. Coming into your career, is that something you thought you would pursue? Is it just something that now you realize, maybe I'd be good at this?
Yeah, my dad's been around it, obviously, being a coach. I just enjoyed, talking to guys, helping guys. That was my role at Michigan. I kind of understood that role. So it was a blast, and I couldn't ask for anything better.
Hey, bro, I actually told your dad I like you.
You did? I hope he signs a contract by next week. So
that'd be pretty cool. Yeah. So last question I wanted to ask you then. What do you think? Being around some of the guys this summer, what are you expecting from this Ohio State basketball team this year?
The freshmen are unbelievable, I think, and I think adding a piece like Keyshawn Woods coming in, veteran guard, who knows how to play, had a good year at Wake Forest. I think just make it even better. I think they have a great understanding what Coach Holman and his staff want, and they're so understanding. What's up, baby?
That's my Atlas, right?
Yeah. Hopefully we see you in Atlanta. That's what I'm saying. They want that matchup, Aaron. But I really like the freshmen. I think they're so above their age, in terms of their IQ, their feel for the game. The likes of Dwayne Washington and Luther Muhammad. So I'm really looking forward to this team. They're obviously younger than last year, but I'm really looking forward to what they got to do in Spain and then when the fall starts.
Well, I appreciate the time and best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. And finally, here is former member of the THAD 5 recruiting class, David Lakey. Of course, he came in with freshmen Daquan Cook, Mike Conley, and Greg Oden. Played 4 years at Ohio State, along with Othello Hunter, former JUCO transfer, was the fifth member of that THAD 5. Here's Lakey talking about the weekend, his career in France, and what he thinks of Holtman's program. I'm here with David Lakey. Let's first talk about the atmosphere. Pretty crazy. You guys had a decided home court advantage, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. It really felt like we were back in college.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can try to win this thing, get it back here next year, get a bigger venue.
Be a little bit different next week in Atlanta. You're probably not going to have the partisan fans behind you.
For sure. But, this weekend was something special. Just to have this in front of those fans and really shows the great support that we had over the years and the teams that we had over the years to bring it all together.
I'm sure you guys expected there would be obviously a lot of fans here and a lot of energy, but did you anticipate being what it was?
No, yesterday I came out, it gave me chills, not going to lie. It definitely gave me chills. You gave me that feeling of, being in the shot again. So just to have this and to finish and play like we did, have a good games and things like that was something special.
Talk about what it meant for you guys for Thad to get the ovation he got when he was doing the ESPN interview.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. He's the winningest coach in Ohio State history. So, I mean, for that, it just really cements what he's meant to building this program back to where it should be.
You guys got to the Final Four last year. Do you feel like you have, with the experience of being there last year, kind of knowing what the competition is like, do you feel like you guys are in better position next weekend to go down there and have a chance at winning?
I think we know what to expect more, but, it's still all about getting the job done. This tournament is just like the NCAA tournament. One false game or one bad game and it's over. Anybody can beat you, so you definitely have to stay on your P's and Q's and be ready to bring it every game.
Let me ask about your career. You're still in France, is that right?
Yeah. Going back to Lyon, Asvel.
How's that been for you, the experience being over there?
It's been great, man, literally, to travel Europe and see the different cultures and live in different cities, to experience it and embrace it and still be able to play the game I love. Get paid for it, too, as a bonus. But literally to travel to places people only see in books or dreamed of going is something that's unreal.
You've been to Italy, you've been to France, you've been to a lot of places. Are there any favorite cities you've been in so far?
I lived in Paris for 2 years and played. I lived in Milan and played. So those two hold a special place for me. But the best, it's tough to say if I could choose one over the other. It's so many different places I've been. But Israel and Tel Aviv is pretty dope. It's kind of like Miami for Europe.
So talk about what it's been like as a former player to come back, how Chris Holtmann, it seems like he's really done a great job going out of his way to embracing all the former players.
Yes, for sure.
It doesn't seem like there's been a drop-off at just getting transitioned into the new staff.
I think that was a big part of what he wanted to do and, having us around and still building and keeping us around pretty much. And I think it's great. If you want to build a program and have a legacy, I think that's where it starts. When you look at other programs and what kind of they have, I think we're mirroring that image pretty much.
What was your impression? I know you're on the road, being overseas. You probably didn't get a chance to watch him a lot, but what were your impressions of the program in his first year and the future of the program going forward?
What more could you ask for? Right in the hunt to win a Big Ten, a game here and there, and just the passion that the kids play with. You saw that right away. Yeah. And, you got to commend the coaches and the trainers and everyone and getting them, on the same page. It's not so easy to do that, especially with how late he came, to the program. So definitely he shows what he can do.
One last question. So you ended the game on a alley-oop, nice little finish. What did you think of the Elam ending and the way, the structure of it?
I was a little skeptical about it at first, not gonna lie, but for us to end it like that is something that's
Have you ever had a walk-off alley-oop?
Not at all. It's the first, so I'm pretty gonna keep that one in the bank for me for sure.
All right, Dave. Well, I appreciate it.
Definitely.
So that'll put a wrap on the Unscripted Ohio podcast for today. Again, special thanks to Aaron Kraft, Andrew Dockage, and David Lakey for taking the time out of their very, very busy weekend. It was like Grand Central Station back there, very hectic. But thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and it was a pleasure to get in touch with not only them, but to touch base with John Diebler and William Buford and Jared Solinger and so many great players and great family people. Great individuals in that program. It was really a great weekend for Ohio State basketball. As a basketball purist and basketball fan, it certainly was a lot of fun to watch them play. And again, you can continue to watch the Scarlet and Gray team play Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. They will be against the primetime players live from Atlanta, Georgia. If they win, they will continue on to the Elite Eight. We'll play again Sunday afternoon. So the Scarlet and Gray team bringing basketball excitement back to Columbus for a couple of days. Chris Holtmann doing the rest, bringing basketball excitement back for the future at Ohio State. So once again, join us again on Friday that we will next appear on the Unscripted Ohio podcast as we start 2 days a week from here on out, Monday and Friday. You can catch us, of course, on BuckeyeGrove.com, on the archives, Google Play, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Join us again Friday. We'll be back with you with Media Days coverage live from Chicago, Big Ten, Kevin Noon and Mark Gibler, And again, we'll have Joel Klatt scheduled to join us to talk some Big Ten football and national college football as well. Looking forward to it. Hope you enjoy your week. Catch me on Twitter at KYLAM8. Thanks for listening, everybody. Go Bucks.
You can get new episodes of Unscripted Ohio on Mondays and Fridays exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all things Ohio State.